Hey there, Bill. So this is what the Max ECU software looks like. I opened up a map from a guy who's got a race ECU, and then I changed the ECU type so that the inputs and outputs that will show up here will be reflective of what you have available as far as like the channel counts and stuff. Two digital inputs versus five on a race, or eight analog inputs. Actually, that's the same on both systems. Outputs you'll have less, but these are the outputs that you'll have available to you. So like if you look up at the top here, GPO out 1 through 8, these are switched ground outputs. You know, one of them will be used for your fuel pump, one will be used for the tach. Speedometer output we won't need to do. You'll have one for your for a shift light, one for a shift solenoid. Then you've got your injectors and stuff. So you've got 8 or 6 injector outputs. You'll only be using 4 of them. Same thing with the coils, but the coils are what will actually drive your solenoids with. So these are 5-volt signals coming out that with the little IGBT drivers will use to actually trigger your nitrous solenoids. So in your case here, you'd have like a nitrous stage 2 solenoid selected. So you're asking about tuning and stuff. So down here is your fuel table. So this is what this guy was using is just a throttle position versus engine RPM VE table, and this is for just on motor stuff. The way that he is handling his nitrous is up here under the nitrous general. You'll see there's some basic stuff and how do you enable it. Enabled by a digital switch, always on or disabled, and then this digital switch could be a toggle switch or even some internal output or something that we make that. Maximum RPM that you spray, and then there's like a nitrous fuel flow ratio, turn off delay. There's a bunch of stuff like that in here. Then there's some protection stuff. Don't spray it if it's less than this coolant temperature. Don't spray in the rev limiter. Blah blah blah. Lambda control, which is nice, so that's your wideband O2 sensor. Maximum lambda while you're spraying. So there's some protection stuff built into it. Here he's got a nitrous timer that he's using. So different ways to do that using your clutch switch when you throw that away to launch is when the timer would start. So under his nitrous stage 1 here, basically he's just got it set to go from 0 up to 100% within 3¼ seconds. Starts ramping in at 2 seconds in. This could be gear based. This could be like you can change anytime you see a table inside of the Max ECU. You can change it to be whatever variables you want. But in this here, he actually just puts in nitrous jet size, number of jets, and then you put in a frequency and stuff, and it'll kind of handle, I think, most of it for you. Ignition retard, this could be a table. He's just got it set to where when it's spring, it looks like it pulls out 3.5 degrees of ignition retard. And then you've got all these conditions down here that says that you don't start spraying unless you're at 90% throttle, 7,600 RPM. You can put in gear, so if you don't want to spray in first gear, if you don't want to spray below 30 miles an hour, blah blah blah. All those things can be tweaked and tuned and stuff in here. And then something else I was going to show you. Here's your standard ignition table, and then you can also do extra fuel, extra ignition tables based on some things. So he's actually doing a gear-based retard. So he's got in first gear, he's pulling a bunch of timing out, I'm assuming to try to keep the front wheel on the ground. He's also got a launch retard that he does here, a couple of seconds into the run. These could be based on nitrous here, though you're kind of already handling that up in the nitrous module. There's lots of different ways to handle stuff. Even in the fuel tables here, if you right click somewhere and you go to a 4D axis, and you could make this like instead of being ethanol content that they just came up as, you could make this nitrous pressure. So let's just say that if nitrous pressure is lower, then you don't need as much fuel or something like that. There's all kinds of things that you can do, and this 4D axis basically will give you like separate tables for each one of these settings, and this axis could be this could have a bunch of different values in it here. It'll do interpolation and stuff in between them. So there's a lot to learn. I would encourage you strongly to to download their software and start playing around with it. I can send you the map that I'm looking at right now if you'd like to take a look at it. One thing I'm, noticing here real quick is digital inputs. You only get two on a sport, so I got it to be a little bit creative and probably using, like, you would need a nitrous arm switch, you need a shift input. Normally those are done under digital input. I can't remember if we were going to take speed into yours. Speed has to be on one of these. Shift, I can manipulate one of the analog channels to use that. Same thing could be done with clutch, but anyway, I'll have to get a little bit creative on how we handle all of your inputs. Sensor-wise, you won't really be filling these up, so we're going to have to borrow some of your analog inputs to handle like your switch positions for, again, for clutch, for shift, that kind of thing. So anyway, hope that gives you a little bit of info. I know if you're just now starting to look at this stuff, there is a ton of things to look at compared to ECU editor stuff. You have CAN bus stuff. This is where I'll configure my dash adapter for you. There's just so many different things that you can do inside of a Max ECU. It is really, really freaking cool. You'll love it.